everyone, and welcome. Tonight is a very special stream because we are going to try something that at least I have not done before, which is trying to sculpt or turn this little wireframe here into a cool dragon like this, like a real cool dragon. So hopefully it turns out cool and doesn't look like some kind of really bad Play-Doh sculpture. And I've had nieces and nephews bring things to me where it's a drawing or it's a sculpture, and to be quite honest, I don't know what it is. Like, you're looking at it like, I don't know what this is. And so you get them talking, and hopefully they'll tell you what it is. Because if you say, oh, that's a cute kitten, and it's not, it's a like lizard, you know, their art can't be that terrible. So I may have one of those moments today. But for today's stream, the big goal is to get clay on this thing and get like the major components kind of sculpted out. Because next week, that's when we're going to be doing all of the details. Little horns, big horns, skin textures, all that kind of stuff. So for those of you guys kind of joining mid-project, like, what the heck is this scraggly looking frog thing? You know, maybe it's a lizard looking thing here is. So let's see if I can give you a much better, view here. And so we used this dragon to create our armature, and that's just what this wire thing is. And so you see him perched on a dummy tower. We already have our tower, and I wanted to perch him so it makes it easier for us to add our clay, and we know that the dimensions and his pose is correct. Like, he will fit on the castle. And I have, but before we move on, gotta say hi to my peeps. We got the usuals. We have Dave Beck and Frozen Mustache joining us. And if you're just joining chat on YouTube, definitely scroll through the comments. Dave has already started adding a whole bunch of puns, which, we have to add to the stream. So we have My Feet Are Really Dragon. Yes. I wonder if this stream will have puns. Well, yeah, indeed, it already does. I'll just wing it until I know for sure. He says that was a stretch and esoteric. We'll take it. We'll take that. I'll quit while I'm ahead before I have to claw my way out of this hole. Yes, you never know. Listen, we might want to be clawing our way out of this dragon clay project. We'll see how that goes. But I went ahead and perched him, and you can see that I put a block to separate this foot from the castle. The reason being that you guys really like the idea of his foot crushing through that little hut. And here are our towers, and you can see the tower all the way on the right of your screen has these kind of brown huts. And so his foot will be kind of crushing through the one, or the roof of the one that's the biggest one on the left of that tower. And then we thought about putting the wizard in like a mini tower next to our main tower, but then you guys all seem to really like the idea of, we have our dragon, our plasma ball, of course, is up here. He's crawling his way up the castle to breathe fire on our wizard. So rather than having a floating, tower with him on it, you guys were totally about the idea of having the wizard itself just floating in the air. And so we have a couple ideas of how we're going to accomplish that, but that's for a later stream. Today is Play-Doh Day or Play-Doh Day. And so you can see, and I put a camera on the table, hoping that this might be a good view for us as we work, So you can see that I used wire mesh for the wings, and I went ahead and added a couple folds. So it's not so one-dimensional. And then this wing over here, I basically laid this wing out flat on the mesh, traced it, and that's what gave me this extra fabric or extra mesh fabric to fold over. And so it looks like his wing is folding, and he's using his little claw to hold on. Let's see if I can, he's like grabbing on everything, his little claw to hold on to the tower. And I thought it'd be kind of neat because you don't usually see dragons in that position. You usually see dragons with their wings outstretched, or, their wings are always open. It's very rare to see a dragon with like a folded wing. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to add that, like he's grabbing onto the castle. And so we looked at a lot of dragons, like the one on the left here does have the wing folded, and that's kind of where I got the idea. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a different pose. The dragon that we're drawing from the most, though, is this one on the right, this Game of Thrones dragons with the little dude on top riding him. Let's pretend that's me. And so he's got some good spikes going on, some good horns. I love the tear in the wings, so hopefully we can recreate that. And then in next stream, that's when we're going to be adding all the skin texture details. And then I had you guys, if you had cool dragon ideas, to post them up on Discord. But it seemed that the most of you guys kind of gravitated towards this Game of Thrones dragons because he's got plenty of spikes. He looks like a lizard. Of course, you have lizard-looking dragons, fish-looking dragons, horse-looking dragons, or kind of more furry type of dragons. So you guys seem to like the traditional lizard-looking dragons. So, and then we had more dragons. Here's another one similar. I think this is another Game of Thrones dragon. And this gave us a better idea of wings and muscle structure, but we kind of didn't really use them. I was kind of looking at him more to see how they did the fire, which is, of course, like, a resin. We're going to try and imitate this using either acrylic rods or glue sticks or, clouds, just tufts of smoke. And light it up from the inside. And here's a couple more dragons. And so it gives us an idea of, the variety of dragons that we can do. But they all kind of had this similar pose. The pose of the Game of Thrones dragons, though, being the most accurate to what we were trying to do. Because he was perched, with his wings out. And the only difference we made was just kind of extend his legs. So that way it looks like he's kind of crawling up the tower. And we had to loop him around, kind of bend his body around the tower. And I left this really long such that we can connect it to the tower. I just used some hot glue and bent it over just to kind of hold his head in place. And then we can just cut this or leave it long, and it can be a mechanism of the fire coming out. And if we unbend this and make it straight, straight this way, it can actually hold our wizard in the air because this is a thicker wire. So it'll be disguised by the fire and our wizard wouldn't need acrylic rods. So that's another idea that we can try. And, oh, my tape is coming off him. I've had the hardest time keeping his shoulders on and his pedonkadonk. Like, it just doesn't want to stay on. I'm like, you are going to be a flat-butted dragon. So now that we made the armature, the position is what I like. And you guys seem to like as well, we're going to start by adding a thin layer of clay. And that was the objective between the armature and the foil, was to reduce the amount of clay that we have to add. Number one, it gives you a lighter end product. Number two, it conserves on clay, because clay, that's not that expensive. Come on now, people. But it's also not like super cheap either, and so the clay that we're going to be using is this polymer clay. And most of this is oven-baked clay. And the advantage of oven-baked clay is that you can continue working on your piece day after day and it won't dry out. It's not an air dry. You have to bake it in the oven to get it to harden. So I thought, because this will probably take a while and heck, I might mess up and I might want to redo some parts, probably this is the better way to go. Now, a couple issues though. My first idea in order to anchor this guy was to maybe build, like, not even put him on the tower, because what are we going to do about putting PVC in the oven? It's going to release all kinds of nasty gases in the house. You're not really supposed to do it. I'm not going to lie though, in that I am very tempted to do it because it's like such a perfect perch and I don't have to move them, and damage any of the clay. So the first idea was to create something like this and hang him from here. And so I tried that, but his body just kind of twisted. And I'm thinking, now that we have the tape, once we get the clay on, we might be able to do it. He is just hot glue to this. So I may just be able to undo the hot, heat up the hot glue to remove him. And then at that point, he might be more rigid. We might be able to hang him and this will go in the oven. If not, and he's still kind of like wobbly, I'm going to have to come up with some idea. So that's where I'm kind of like picking your guys' brain about how to handle it. Now, of course, hot glue will melt in the oven, but if you take a look at this, there's no reason why I can't stick a screw through here. I can't stick a screw through his other foot. and his wing is anchored with wire, so it's not even glued in. And this, I can use a similar technique. I don't even know why I hot glued it. I should have drilled a hole and stuck the wire through the hole and bent it. So we can do that. So any ideas you guys have on somehow baking this, you know? And the other idea I had was like baking it a little and then removing him. Maybe the clay will be hard enough that we can remove him from this thing before it gets too hot in the oven, and then transfer him to something else. So these are all ideas of, you know, how we're going to end up baking this guy. But again, today's objective is to get the clay on him. We do need to route our LED eyes. We wanted to do some cool, you know, these are just solid red. And I thought because we have a whole bunch of like flickering LEDs going on, I thought maybe just adding a solid red won't be so distracting. So Dave is mentioning something that I totally thought about, and I'm very tempted to do it, was to use my grill outside. I have a propane grill. Now, I won't be able to close it because this thing is too tall. But even just kind of putting it on the grill and maybe turning it around, and once kind of this is hardened, maybe we can lay it, or maybe I can make some kind of hanging type of wire inside the grill, and just really paying attention to the temperature. Even if I have to sit outside with it for the full 15 to 30 minutes, I will sit outside with it. Now, it might cook a little unevenly, but that is an idea. And then all this nasty fumes would go to the outside. Sorry, planet. Sorry, little creatures. You know, hopefully it's not that much. It's not that big of a tube, you know. And Frozen Mustache has an idea. He said, make a tinfoil tent over it. And that's another thing that I was thinking. Is there a way, like if we can't really deal with removing him from the tower, I'd rather not remove him from the tower, but at the same time, I don't want carcinogens coming my way. Is there a substance that we can cover this tube in? Perhaps a paint, perhaps something that will contain the fumes as it cooks. And Frozen Mustache is saying, make a tinfoil tent over it. So I imagine what you mean is make a tinfoil tent over the whole thing, and then we can put him in the grill that way. I don't know if we can still put him in the oven, because I think the gases would escape the tinfoil tent, unless we cover the whole PVC pipe with tinfoil and then use electrical tape to really make the tinfoil tight so that gas can't get out. I don't know. These are all ideas, you know? So if we can't think of anything quite yet, there's always Discord. Hop on Discord and put your ideas in there. And Frozen Mustache is confirming that he does mean in the grill. Like you put the foil over it and then you hang it in the grill. So that kind of sounds like a good direction. I'm willing to try it. Oh yeah. And I have a lot of these like, well, this is just tinfoil, but non-stick cook mats that I can, put down just to kind of like keep the grate in case any clay falls or anything like that. Because again, this is our first time doing this. So for our LED lights, before we even start putting them on the dragon, I just wanted to make sure they work, so they're here, and I got it all wired up, and I'll bring you guys in close for this. So you can see that we have our two, and I already kind of did this type of situation, and we have, again, for this project, we're using blue for positive. I'm trying to get rid of some of my weird colors, blue for wizard. And, obviously black for our, ground. And so somehow we're going to put these LEDs inside the dragon head, and then we're going to route this down the body here. And you can see I spaced out the resistors, kind of staggered them so you don't have two resistors bunching in on each other. If we can route one above the body and one below the body, that'd be great. And then these are all going to come out through the foot that is crushing the tower. It's going to go into our hut, down the tube in here, and, into the rest of the wiring system, the electrical system or circuit. So that's kind of the plan for that. And Dave already did kind of a test on this, and he said cooking the LEDs at 275 for the required time didn't affect him. They were still working. So he already went ahead and potentially sacrificed some of his LEDs. So that does work. And so we're going to give it a try. The only thing he did mention is that the insulation does kind of melt a little bit. So I covered the tin foil with our tape. And I thought if we then add a thin layer of clay over it and then run the wires, if the insulation goes a little bit, it'll have a layer of clay and a layer of tape so it doesn't touch the tin foil. Because if both of them like lose a little insulation and they both touch the tin foil, oh my God, touch the tin foil. No talking today. Then, you know, obviously all the bad things happen and no more glowy lights for us. So that's the idea. And Dave is also kind of giving the thumbs up to the hood on the grill idea. Yeah, I'm sure I can hang this from the grill, you know, like this, and just have him cook, you know, and then that way most of the dragon's on the bottom, and I think he'll cook pretty evenly that way with the tinfoil tent. That's really going to help with our, you know, cooking. So giving him kind of like a one last look over, you know, the tail has plenty of clearance over here. We don't want all of the dragon to be all like touching the tower, you know, because then we can't really add too much detail. And Kurt Benning is here. Kurt Benning 99. Hi there. Hey, Kurt, you just came for like the most amazing part, which is like the clay part, you know, that we're about to start. So looking at this clay, when you pull it out of the packaging there, the nice thing is you can leave it out. I have even a plastic baggie because the shop is dusty. So if I just leave it out, he'll start to kind of collect some dust, you know, over time. And so the idea is when we're finished here, I'm going to put a plastic saran wrap over him so that way he doesn't get so dusty, and put this in the bag. But we don't have to worry too much about air drying because, you know, we got to bake it. So then for the feet, I'm not quite sure how to handle the feet quite yet. We may make the feet, and if we can bake it on this thing, we can go ahead and make the feet. If it turns out we cannot bake it on the PVC, then we'll have to make the feet after. And you can rebake and rebake as many times. And fresh clay will stick to baked clay. So that's the nice part. The other idea was to use air dry clay to make the feet. So now a different kind of clay, because then we can position the dragon on the tower and use the air dry variety, which is also a great variety. I didn't want to use it for this step, only because, you know, we want to take our time with this. So all I'm doing is when you get the polymer clay out of the packaging, it is like hard. It's like really hard. And so you have to knead it, kind of warm it up with your hands a little bit to kind of get it going. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. It's just kind of kneading this clay. And it comes in various colors. Let's see. Craftsmart. I got this at Michael's, not sponsored. You know, we're just going to see how this works. If it sucks, I can say it sucks. But I would say that this is more like an economy-ish type of clay. And it seems like the popular clay that a lot of people use is Sculpting. I like this one because it was black, and I thought, heck, that's kind of like what I was going to base coat it anyways. So what I'm going to do is make a thin kind of, you know, covering, almost like a thin skin that we're going to start putting on him. And again, I am totally talking like I know what I'm doing. Well, step 1, we're going to put a thin skin. Step 2, yeah, no, I am just faking it here. We're going to see what happens. And you can watch as many videos online as you want. It's not till you try it yourself that you really start to figure out what works and what doesn't, you know, because obviously I'm going to move these out of the way. These people are very skilled. So you see them the way they hold the clay. It's very like effortless, you know, and meanwhile you're like trying to hold it. So let's start with, I guess it's head. And see, I have and I'm going to like stand up for this a little bit. And this is not really, I don't know where its head is going to end up, you know, so I kind of left it uncovered. The neck seems a little long, but it kind of seems like it has to be long to reach around our tower and have the wizard over here. Or else he's going to still be behind the tower and the fire's going to be coming out and people are like, where's that fire coming from? Like they need to see his head. So he might have to be kind of a long neck dude. So we'll put a thin layer and then don't let me forget to run the LEDs. I will totally forget. Now, of course, we can do the dragon and then just hot glue the LEDs down its stomach, you know, where it's not very visible. But I don't know. I want this to look like, where are those LEDs coming from? You know, kind of like the Halloween toys that we see in the store. Their LEDs are in there. You know, unfortunately, if the LEDs burn out or you know, don't do so well, they're stuck there. But worst case scenario, I figure you always have some cool red looking glass eyes. You know, worst case scenario. And I'm trying to blend this seam that we have going on here. And again, we're not really doing spikes or skin textures or anything today. This is like a get them covered in clay. Make sure we like the placement of the LEDs. Maybe start adding some basic muscles, you know, like lumps for the muscles that will texture later. And so I'm just making his head a little bit bigger. And do I have, oh, his underside still needs to be done. Look at that on his neck right there. So let's try and get him. And let me see if, whoop, I'm tripping over stuff here. Let me see if I can give you guys a much better view. If I bring him over and let's try and do his neck. It's like I'm trying to like show you guys, but show me at the same time. And it's like one of us just ain't gonna have the best view. So I'll deal with the not good view. And so I would say it's about this thick. So I'm not going like real thick at all. This is super thin. And in retrospect, you know, had I had more experience, I probably would have built out the foil a little bit more. You know, make them a little fatter so we use less clay. But I was scared to do that because like if he's too close to the size you want, by the time you add horns and all that, he's gonna end up looking a chonker. You know, he hit the buffet one too many times. But you can't fault him for that. I love a good buffet. Very good. And Kurt Benning is saying there are some streaming issues. So I'm just looking. Oh, and you're on Twitch. So let's see here if I see the skip. Hopefully it's temporary and it'll come back. And our last stream was pretty good, but 2 streams in a row, we did have some kind of droppages and things like that. So hopefully it'll come back. It'll come back. If not, I'll see if I can give it yield a reboot. And get it going. And Kurt, if you cannot, I think you're on YouTube is where you signed up. If you go to YouTube and you go to the community tab, I posted about it this morning. So you could try YouTube as well, if you can still see or hear what I am saying. So I'm just taking kind of small pieces of clay and covering him up. And if I'm back on Twitch, give me a quick chat comment that all is well. And if the same thing is happening on YouTube, like if things are a little wonky on YouTube, definitely let me know. And it could be that I just need to start, where be my clay? I need to start just resetting the modem more often, you know, right before I stream. Just give it a yield restart. And so I'm using this little knife thing. It's very bendy. And I'm just gonna cut a piece of this off. And we've already tested this, so we're good to go. And Frozen Mustache is saying, I still have you. So Kurt seems to be having some issues, or maybe everyone had issues on Twitch and then it just kind of cleared itself up. Oftentimes it'll clear itself up and automatically restart. If I have to shut everything down and restart, then it's like new streaming links sometimes for people. So this is like really hard, and so I'm just gonna give it a good old kneading. And I think we're getting to the back of him, so maybe something like that. It's a bit better. There we go. And Dave Beck is saying YouTube is rocking, so it looks like if Frozen Mustache has me and YouTube, we're probably back at it. We're probably back at it. It's good. So I just keep an eye. Sometimes if the screen goes black there, then I'm like, oh no. So I should probably need a whole bunch of this stuff, but I'm like, I don't know how much I need, you know. how much I need. Oh, get it? So I'm making it super thin. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try and contain this chest of his in a thin strip. And try and blend it in. So it's like one. Oh, not bad. Maybe this guy will not look so bad, you know? I have high hopes. I have high hopes. Let's see here. I'm missing some spots. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. And the reason I have the tinfoil kind of cover, it's a little bit difficult with the reflection, but this stuff, if it, you know, gets on your furniture or any type of fabric, the polymer clay, unlike a lot of the air dry clays, it does stain. I don't really see anything on my fingers. It's not really sticking to my hands or anything like that, but I'm wondering if I get some on my sleeve that it may stain it. But this is kind of like a work shirt, so I'm not too worried about it. And so yeah, the biggest thing I'm doing is just trying to remove a lot of the seams. Look for any blue, like there's a little bit of blue right there, which is kind of tough for you guys to see. It's tough to maneuver him with his wings all up, wanting to poke everything. I don't know, I think sometimes I need a head cam or something like that just to wear on my forehead, just so you guys see what's going on. All right, so he's not super smooth. I'm not too worried about that. So if we get his torso done, we can at least run the LEDs and kind of get them positioned and, you know, be happy with where our head is at. And I'm just gonna go with his back. And for this, maybe I'll switch over here so you guys can see his back. Yes, and David is saying LEDs. So what I'm doing is getting probably the thinnest layer that I can of clay on here first, because the idea is if the LED, ooh, I'm like touching it in all the wrong spots. If the LEDs, the insulation kind of melts just a little bit, I want to try and avoid it touching the tin foil. And especially if like the positive and negative do the same thing. This whole thing is like a giant metal thing. So I thought maybe I'll put the tape around it. That helped hold a lot of our tinfoil issues. And I learned too, like I'm giving you guys these tips as I learn, using larger pieces of tinfoil is definitely the way to go. I tried to use very little ones because I was afraid to like over bulk him, but definitely, you know, the bigger tinfoil is better. And then the tape holds the tinfoil in place. And I did use some hot glue in this area just to kind of form the wings. And so once we get more clay on the wings and we actually connect clay from this like, you know, floater right here onto his body, that'll stabilize this wing. And this wing is now stabilized, you know, by being on the, you know, hooked to the tower. So even if that hot glue inside its body melts, we're going to be good. So the idea is with this thin layer of clay, we're going to run our LED, we're going to put them on the head, we're going to try and run one on this side, and we're going to try and run the other maybe on his belly to like really be trying to separate them. And then they're going to go up the leg. At this point, we're probably not going to be able to separate them real well. And they're going to go to the foot. And then we're just going to let them hang, you know, for the cooking process. And, you know, we'll figure out the rest later, but as long as it comes out of the foot. And I thought if we have, okay, layer of tape, layer of clay, that should be a good insulation. And we still have a lot to build on this dragon. So it's not like, you know, the LEDs are, we're going to build a lot over them. So we'll be good. So let's see here. And I'm going to try and like go in through this wing right here. Like his waist is so skinny. Like I like the skinny waist like lizards on the dragons, but he's like very emaciated. And if he's going to be very menacing, we got to make him look like he's eaten a villager or two, just to kind of put the fear in our wizard. And so I'm just cutting up some more clay. Ooh. All right. So So good catch. Dave was like, oh, you're going to forget the LEDs, and I probably still will. So as soon as I get kind of down to here, we'll do this leg, and we'll go ahead and get those LEDs situated on him. All right, more kneading the dough. At least if I was getting some like biscuits out of this, oh, love, my favorite biscuits are Popeye's fried chicken biscuits. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like them a little bit better than Cracker Barrel biscuits. Cracker Barrel are a very close second in terms of biscuits for me. Really good, but I don't know what Popeyes puts in them. I don't know, maybe crack or something, but they're really, really good. I love their biscuits. And see, his butt just doesn't want to stay. His pandakandak. And David is already on the padankadonk. He's like, you can give the dragon some padankadonk with the clay. Indeed. He just like, you know, you don't have to go full Kim Kardashian, but, you know, a little something here, because you think that a dragon uses its tail almost like as a rudder. And so you would think it's got kind of some big quadriceps, and that kind of goes up into the, if he does lunges, the gluteus maximus area. So I am just trying to build up this gluteus maximus, right? So I have a little bit of blue because this is painter's tape. I didn't have like the regular masking tape, and I thought as soon as this starts getting cooked, you know how painter's tape comes off like really easily? I'm like, those LED wires are just gonna be all up in the foil. And, you know, if they melt a little bit, then we're just going to start, you know, potentially having problems. So I figure a tiny layer of clay might be helpful for us. I'm not trusting my taping capabilities. All right. So I'm going to do the chest here a little bit just to give us a good runway for our LED. So we still have some exposed like metal. And once this thing bakes, it'll bake the LED wires right into the clay. So hopefully there's a lot of hours on those LEDs. Isn't it something like 50,000 hours or 10,000 hours or something like that an LED can glow? But I don't know, our plasma bulb might outlast it, only because the plasma bulb doesn't even, like light bulb, doesn't even have to work for it to give that effect. So got down the pandankadonk, and I'm going to start doing the leg so that's insulated for our wires. And it's already looking pretty kind of neat, you know? Without even much texture. I think the armature really, really helps a ton. I can't imagine having to try this without an armature. First of all, I think like one leg would be bigger than the other, and he would just look really messed up. And the wizard, he'd show up at the wizard's crib like he is now, and the wizard would be like, yeah, you know, I'll have this fight done and ready for biscuits, you know, making biscuits in about half an hour. This fight's not going to last very long at all. So, and the other reason I thought about covering him with tape, not just to hold the aluminum foil together, is I already like planned for a lot of mistakes. I'm like, I'm going to remove clay. It's going to be too much clay, or maybe I want to start over or something like that. Trying to pull clay out of like a lot of these divots in the foil. And if I pull the clay off, the foil's probably going to want to come with it. So I figured, you know what, let me add a bunch of areas of tape. You know, just kind of have a surface to use. And a little bit more. I figure if we can realistically run these LED lights, I'll be very proud if it's something that looks halfway decent. And I have a whole other brick in case, you know, we start to get real crazy with those horns, which that's okay. You know, I'm thinking about putting horns on the ends of the wings. But I found the mesh right next to the armature, and I hadn't even really thought about how I was going to attack the wings until I saw that mesh, and I was like, wait a minute. Sometimes I find it's best to just walk the aisles of a hardware store sometimes. Sometimes you run into something that is totally not used for the purpose but you're like, wow, this would really be helpful with this project or, you know, that. And normally I like to try and shop online just to have everything ready and then go and get it. But you don't think to even look it up, you know, whereas when you're walking down the aisles, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this would be great. And that's great for like metal straps, metal rods. Every time I see them, I'm always like, oh, that's what I need for this project or that project. And sometimes I'm thinking of the most complicated way of doing something until I find a solution at the home improvement store, like a Lowe's or a Home Depot. All right, so we're almost done our leg, and it's just looking like a chunky leg for now, but we'll fix him. Because he's gonna have a ton more muscle going on over here, and then this, you know, leg will look much skinnier than this portion of the leg. But this is the part where I wanted to cover in clay, because metal and metal is not good. And I know sometimes you guys see a whole bunch of hand and no doing. All right, Kurt Benning, it looks like he is back. Awesome. And so we are almost done our whole journey to try and get our LEDs on. So I think we're good. I'm just going to turn him around and check his underbelly area. And it looks like we have a little bit of blue right there. So let's try and get him, and then we can try and run these LEDs. And you guys might not be able to see this, kind of awkward. But it does seem like the more clay I put on this, it's getting even more rigid, which is good. That's going to help when we hang it in the barbecue, which we're totally doing now because you guys mentioned it. I'll run a camera so we see how it all turns out. And I'll show you guys. But let's see. And I think its neck is still a little too thin, so that's going to give us room for our LEDs. And now I'm just kind of blurring the seams. I'm going to turn him around and just see if I can grab him from this end. It's kind of pushing the clay around until it kind of becomes seamless with each other. But it's kind of nice. It's kind of sticking to everything. You know, one of the fears I had was, what if it doesn't even stick to the tape? You know, and then what are we going to do? And I've seen some people turn the tape backwards and sticky side out, and that solves that problem for them. So that's always an option. So that's our dragon for now, and he's as is. He needs a little bit of build out on his like very skinny underfed belly, you know, but he's looking pretty good already. So let's figure out this whole LED situation here. I'm going to place him here and see, where is it? All right. So before we place it, I'm going to put the LEDs in there, kind of in the dark. I have like a battery pack here. Let's just make sure they work, because that would suck. Put them in, and then, oh no, they didn't work in the first place. Oop. Yep, so I see them working. Awesome. Let's do this thing. So I chose the 5mm versus the 3, and I thought about going with the 3, but they're so tiny that by the time we put clay like eyelids on them, they're just going to get buried. So he might have kind of big old looking eyes, but you know, all the scarier. So let's see a good kind of angle, and I may have to stand to do this. And we're going to try and get this done. And the penguin is here. Dragon, he says. Yeah. So now let's, I don't even know, guys. Now let's run the negative underneath him like that. And, oh, this thing's in the way. So maybe I'll do this. What if we kind of open this like this, and Oh, I should have not glued this guy. It'd be nice to kind of put him, like straddle him across like that. Oh, unless this might be even better. I go like this. I'm just going to very carefully bend this and go like that. And let's assume, let's see how long his neck is pretty long, but it kind of has to be that way because he's got to make it to this side of the castle. So let's just say I'm going to smush this into the clay. You know, it kind of makes sense his head would be that big. The clay will probably cover to about here. And that will be like his head. I think that's a good head size. And let's try and make the other one so it's not crooked. Can you imagine like one side up, one eye up and one eye down and he's all like this? That would be a poor dragon. We need something that's going to be actually menacing, you know, to the wizard and not like laughable. So, you know. Oh, and Penguin is saying it is looking great. Awesome. So let's see if we can keep this guy. And I'm just going to like try and not get my head up all up in your guys' way. And you guys can say if this looks straight at all. Or you can be like totally crooked. All right. So, oh, that is real crooked. Oh my God. He is just having some issues. That's not going to scare anybody. If a dragon came up to me like that, I'd be like, yeah, no. All right, let me use what you guys are seeing. Right about there, right? I'm going to push in. That's not bad. This one, he's still kind of poking out more than the other one. Let me shift angles. Yeah, so this eyeball seems to be sticking out more than that eyeball. So let me see if I can get kind of a better bend. And I'm going to use one of these tools. I'm always like reluctant to bend so close to the LED and have the thing snap off. I don't know like what your guys' experience has been with that. Or how sturdy they are. You know, how resistant. I'm just separating the legs a little bit. And let's see if I can get this. That's about there. And if I push it in. Yeah, guys. It's only a tiny bit crooked. That's better. And this one needs to move up. That's pretty good right there. So I'm going to put some clay on top here and clay on top just to now really secure them together. And let's see, am I out of clay? Yes, so let me cut a little bit more. He looks weird like this. Almost like, I don't know, Terminator, dragon. I'll be back, dragon. All right, I gotta knead this for a little bit. Knead it. Knead that Popeye's fried chicken biscuit. Or a Cracker Barrel. I'll take that too. Kentucky Fried Chicken, I like all the rest of their stuff. The biscuit is just not as good as the other two. I don't know. You guys can chime in, but I'm a huge fan of the Popeyes and Cracker Barrel biscuits. Are his eyes forward like a lion or on the sides like a horse? I think that they're on the sides like a horse, but it's a good thing that you brought this up now. Let's double check. I'm going to see if I can move this in front of you guys. So where's his head? It's right there. So it kind of looks to me that it is on the side versus the front of the nose because their noses are very broad. Although one could argue they're kind of both. You know, it is not so much to the side. But yeah, I'll put them on the side because we can use clay to actually make it look like it's facing forward by only allowing, you know, part of the LED to show. We can decide which parts of the LED to show. But I think I'm going to aim them now that you said that. That totally makes sense. I'm going to aim them. Oops, he already wants to unstick. I'm going to aim them forward a little bit. That makes way more sense. That's a good catch. Or else it's like a fish. You know, he's more like a fish. So now that I've kneaded this clay a little bit, I'm going to lock in our LED lights by putting a piece of clay here. And Penguin is saying, I'm moving into the delivery area for KFC. Gonna get a bucket. Awesome. Bucket of fried chicken. So they used to have, at least in my area, the buckets of grilled. So sometimes I would alternate, you know, to like feel healthy and stuff. A bucket of grilled. But man, like nothing beats the bucket of fried chicken. And I love the dark meat. So I'm like legs and thighs all the way. Drumsticks. Oh my God. Love them. All right, guys. So I think this worked. I think this worked. And this kind of gives us a basis to sculpt the head. So yeah, I kind of like them kind of facing, you know, to the side, but a good bit to the forward as well. To the forward. All right, so now we have to figure out, and I'm going to back you guys on up just a little bit, how to run these wires, because my original idea, I probably shouldn't have gotten this. I thought, ooh, I'm going to be like ahead of schedule, Rachel, and like pre-wire all this stuff, you know, so that way we don't have to sit there watching solder and wiring like we've watched so many times before. But this is what you get. Now you gotta try and figure out. So I think I'm going to try and run this under his armpit here, and it's trying to get stuck up on all the wings. So we keep the positive and like negatives kind of separate in a way. And maybe I'll run the negative kind of like on this side. And I'm beginning to press this whole thing into the clay. So it's naturally making like a groove. I think I can bring you guys in a little bit. Move this right there. Maybe a little clay where they might overlap. Oh, good call, good call. Right here, they're overlapping. So I'm going to lift this guy and just kind of put a little buffer. Little buffer. That way. I'm going to put a little more buffer. I was a little conservative. Right there. That's a good idea. And then I rub on the clay, and you get a lot of that. See how it starts to kind of come together. And now I want to separate these two just a little bit, but they're both positives, so it's not as bad. And I'm just going to push. And somehow, let's figure out, I want to kind of route them down here, because the chest area here, whoop, it's going to be super puff. It's a super puff. It's going to go here, and then it's going to come out even like that. And so it's going to really cover those resistors. So I'm going to try and, oh, it's getting all stuck up on me. Do that. And see if I can keep them a little bit separated. Gotta keep them separated. Dun, 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 dun. With my horrible singing, you guys probably don't even know what song that is. I tried though. I tried. Okay. And it's making its way to this chicken leg right here, this dark meat thigh. Actually, I'm already noticing like it wants to pop out of the clay. So let me put, put pieces on top to kind of brace it. Brace it. Only because the resistors with the leads and being soldered, they're kind of bulky, so they don't bend so well. So let's see here if we can just put some tape like that, some clay tape. I'm very curious as to how this is going to bake out. I'm even more curious as to how this thing is going to end up looking in the end. But I think we're a step above elementary school looking, so I think I would get a good grade. Yeah, and Dave is saying clay band-aids, pretty much is what I'm doing. Yeah, so if you wanted to change the color of the LEDs, it is too late. But I remember you guys kind of like voting. I think I had green and blue and red on the docket, and I think red won out. So that's why we did them. So now that that's more separated, I can now kind of separate this a bit better without fighting the clay. or, you know, fighting the wiring. All right, so this will go down this part of the chest, and this one, I know it's kind of tough for you guys to see, will go down this part of the chest. So that's what it looks like. And I'm going to cover it with clay now, just to lock it in place. Yeah, so far this clay is pretty easy to work with. It's not too hard, not too soft, which I know is a terrible explanation. Like, wow, can you be any more descriptive? It's not too hard, not too soft. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This one was too hot. This one was too cold. This one was just right. But really, what is just right? You know, that's very different to different people. It's like, please, Goldilocks, please be more descriptive, you know? Of your soup descriptions. So we can already see that the chest is beginning to puff out slightly more. We're going to puff it out even more, and that'll really hide our electrical situation going on here. And let's see, we got this guy here to cover up now. Before we start doing the wings and adding muscles, I figured do this because I will forget. And then he'll be all like, look at the muscles. He looks amazing. Oh no, the LEDs. And then in which case we probably would have just run it down the side of his body as hidden as possible. But that would have looked really lame. Super lame. All right. So now I'm going to move on to this part here. So we have one wire already coming out of its belly, and we're going to try and get it on the back side of the leg and just kind of popping out of here. And then we'll worry about routing it later. And here I'm going to do this. I'm going to have it come down the back, join it here, and then do the same, but try and keep some clay between the two, the positive and the negative. So let me put some clay band-aids here. And kind of glad I went with the black, because once we put the details in this thing, the less you have to add, you know, in terms of base coat after base coat. It starts to obliterate some of your detail. And so I noticed that I have like some wire popping out here. Let's try and get that kind of hidden away, unless we want like cyborg dragon coming after the wizard. And one of these red eyes can totally be like the Jean-Luc Picard, I am Borg type of dragon. And we can put some like mechatronic looking things. Uh-oh, I better be quiet because I'm just walking into more project. Somebody's gonna be like, yeah, that's awesome, do it. But maybe this will be purely a fantasy build. We have our plasma ball, and here I'm struggling to get more clay. Let me knead this guy. Still got a little bit of Borg wire coming out of here. And according to the picture, it looks like his neck gets slightly thicker as it comes to its head. So that design feature will definitely help us out. But he looks more like a salamander now with these eyes. Salamander dragon. He went from frog dragon to salamander dragon. All right, so he's looking pretty ferocious. All right, let's see if I can get some of this, and maybe this is a little bit better for you guys. See how we're gonna tackle this. And for this, I'll just kind of move over here so I can see what's going on. But first, the kneading. All right. And if you take out a bunch and you knead it and you leave it sit, by the time you get back to it, you kind of have to knead it again. So I think there's no winning. It's either like watching paint dry, watching glue dry, or kneading dough. There's always got to be one of those in the stream, as much as I try and avoid it. Can't always do it. All right, so let's see here. Get it nice and flat. Like literally, it's just like a flap. And I think I prefer to work in smaller flaps. So let's see if I can get this guy This is where he's soldered together so he doesn't bend. Great. Get up and over the knee. His knee muscles. We're going to give him some nice quads like he's done his leg day. And what is going on? I'm going to see, I need to bend it just a tiny little bit more to make that curve. There we go. Now you can't see him. Just gonna slap some clay over that. And ooh, I can cheat. I can come on this side. You guys can't see me. All right, so we got one going to the side of the leg that we want. And I'm gonna try and get him covered up and in place so we can put the other one and not worry about separating them and giving them each their. Okay, just kind of touching the dragon, figuring out how to get this. This is kind of a tight space. I'm kind of glad that I did pull the dragon away from the castle a little bit. He was like hugging it. And I thought, that's probably not a good idea by the time we have to get back here. Now, of course, he may not have the greatest amount of detail underneath his chicken frog legs, you know, but we still have some great access to his belly right there. We're going to be able to add some really cool scales. And with this dragon right here, you can see that the skin all the way around, other than the horns, looks very similar. The belly skin looks exactly like the back skin. But I've seen dragons where the belly skin is more like a snake. They have wider scales, you know, on them. So maybe we can do something where the back skin texture is different than the, you know, the belly. So we got this guy in the back here, and so we're gonna try and route him down this way. And I'm just gonna use some Band-Aids. I'm gonna kind of stick them in here, stick them in, and see if I can. I wonder if I route him this side and then have him, and I know like my hands are completely covering everything for you guys to not see. All right, so I think I may have to like cheat and turn him around unless I do this so you guys can see too, but I think we can loop him that way. So at least he takes slightly a different trajectory than our blue. And here's where they can probably touch a little bit, because we got no choice. Got no choice. They all got to go to the same destination. And I'm going to get behind here and just press down on these wires. There we go. And I think, what happened to this guy? Oh, he didn't quite get to. Actually, instead of like trying to go on the leg and try and go into the hut, I think probably the easiest thing to do might be simply to drill a hole. And I'll see if I can hold this for you guys. Where my finger is, drill a hole and have it go into the castle there. I don't know, what do you guys think? Have them both go up the leg. That would be the most invisible, like, because we probably will have bricks here and stone from the castle. You probably won't even see these wires going in. And I think that might be easier. Like, this is a delicate part that we're going to be sculpting on second thought. This leg is going to have, little muscles and things. And trying to send it behind here and up the leg is getting a little bit tough. And David is saying, you can turn the dragon towards you. We could see. You saw me going like this. So yeah, I'm kind of almost voting making a hole here and putting the wires through the castle that way. Because if you see where his leg is, we still have bricks to put in this thing. So I think that the brick will completely cover the wire going into there. So I will leave that as is for now until see what you guys chime in terms of opinions on that one. And Frozen Mustache is saying great choice. Yeah, I think that's going to make our lives easier than trying to run the leg where it gets, this is going to start to get real thin up here. So this is the kind of stuff that you think is a good idea until you actually start to build it and you're like, oh, wait a minute. You know, I didn't quite think this through. And Dave Beck is saying, yep, blue cheese crumbles might cover it because that's kind of how I call it. Some blue cheese crumbles, crumble rocks. All right, so all I'm doing is just kind of covering up this wire, and I'm gonna let it hang, you know, and we'll cook it with the wires hanging, and then I'll drill, you know, once we have them positioned on the castle, I'll go ahead and drill them out. So let's finish kind of getting the rest of the clay on him, and then we'll tackle probably the extended wing, and if we like the way it looks, I can go ahead and tackle, you know, this wing and get him ready for next week. And we can add some musculature and really start getting the clay, like really knead it while it's on him, like a biscuit, and start getting it to look the way we want. So he's not all like, he's a little bulbous in certain areas. But yeah, I had my doubts, people, but I don't know. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking pretty decent. For a first clay project. And his pedonkadonk just wants to come off. Well, we're going to tack that down with some clay. He is like wanting a slim behind, and I'm fighting him on it. I'm like, no, it's not in fashion. You want to have a big behind. Apparently, that's what's in fashion. So we're gonna make it also for dragons. So that way there's like something for the tail to come out of, you know. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit more clay here. And knead. Make them biscuits. Make them biscuits. All right, I'm liking the eyes. I think we like crushed the eyes. I'm like, there you guys are. You guys aren't there anymore. You're there. That's where I put you guys. And Dave is saying, I give us A+ for clayage. I concur. Our clayage like skills are like fire, you know, as the young'uns say. It's fire. I'm like, what's on fire? You know, those of us that work in a shop, we're like, wait, is something on fire? You know, I'm always paranoid that I left the soldering iron on or the hot glue gun iron on. But alas, I'm pretty good at shop shutdown. All right, so where were we? We are on the pedonkadonk. All right, and for this, I'm wondering if I can lay him. Oh, I can't because of the tail. Maybe I can just do this and I need to wrap enough clay to just get this tape to stick a bit. And I'm like really glad that I ended up doing this on a PVC pipe because you do actually have to press down a decent amount. And if he were free hanging on my hangman's noose idea, I think like his body would have already distorted a decent amount. Listen, we would have figured it out. We would have stuck him on the castle one way or another, you know, even if we had to extend the back of the castle to touch some of his limbs, we would have figured it out. But I think this is going to make our lives a ton more easy. And his butt is already much better settled. And hopefully, it looks like a bunch of like mummy tape going on right now, but hopefully we can start smoothing some of that out. And I really like this tool right here with it's kind of like a rubber end, and that's a great kind of like smoothing tool. See, it starts to kind of smooth away all of the butt area, but we'll get to that later. Right now I'm just roughing it with my hands because I'm trying to get the clay as tight on the tape and foil as possible so we don't have like excess bulkiness where we don't want it, and then we can start building up the different muscles, or I definitely want to puff the chest out a little bit more, you know, more for like pomp and circumstance for the wizard and get him all freaked out. Because part of it is show. Now I don't want to get that in the way. Let me see how I'm doing underneath here. And I'm already beginning to cover the black wire where I don't want to cover it. So I'm just going to be super rude and kind of like do this for a sec. And you guys won't really see what's going on. But the objective is just to kind of get these wires coming out of the same hole or similar. A little bit separated by clay. Like you guys had suggested, that was a great idea. And Dave, I was looking at your flashing LED experiment, and I swear, I think it's because you post too much like chicken emojis or, you know, chicken nuggets and food. That clay test of yours looked like chicken fingers. I was like, did he put LEDs in chicken fingers? I actually had to read the description to find out that it was clay. It just had that crispy outside texture. So I was like, oh, he baked up some chicken fingers and stuck blinking LEDs in them. I was like, genius. It's like that was some of the contest chefs should do on those baking shows. Like, I don't recall anyone incorporating like LEDs or anything like that. Like, oh guys, that's a new show. That's a new, like, we can definitely do that. All right. So there we go. I got the wire out of the way. Now back to you guys actually seeing what the heck is going on. Now this tail I also thought is way too long for a dragon this size. But again, because I backed him away from the castle, I had to lengthen the tail so it loops in the front. So we can see, you know, a little peekaboo tail, and his neck, he can, you know, loop around the front, and we actually see his head and the fire coming out. Or else he'd be too much behind the castle. Like, I didn't want him completely in front, but, you know, we don't want people to not even notice he's there either. It's like there's some fire coming out of the back of the castle. I don't know why. So I think this is a happy medium. He's got a slight long neck and a long tail. So I think it'll balance each other out. And by the time we start adding muscles, a lot of this stuff is going to start to thicken out. So the legs are going to look less long. The torso is going to look less long as well. And so is the tail. So it's deceiving when you make the armature. You're like, wow, these limbs look really long. It looks more like a desert lizard than, you know, than a dragon. So Frozen Mustache saying that he would definitely watch a LED cooking show. Oh my gosh, Dave is admitting. So, you know, there's a video up on Discord if you guys check it out. We asked this question kind of among ourselves, like, will LEDs survive being baked in the oven? Or in this case, this dragon's going to be grilled. Oh yeah, I'm going to bust out my barbecue card for him and my barbecue sauces. But the idea was like, will LEDs survive? So Dave went ahead and like baked LEDs at 275, which is what this clay needs. And it's 15 minutes per quarter inch of thickness, right? So he bakes it in the oven, and there's a video of this. You guys have to go see it. And I blew the video up, but I couldn't tell. And I'm like, I swear this clay he's using looks like chicken fingers. And he is saying it was a chicken strip because I didn't have any baked clay. Listen, we use what we got, right? We use what we got. All right, I'm gonna hold off on going to the very tip of the tail just to kind of see how the rest of the dragon starts turning out. If we figure that we need to cut it and it is indeed a little bit too long, we can. And so we'll go to about there. I still think it can be longer, and I have no more clay. So let me cut a little bit more. And I've enjoyed watching clay sculpt videos online because they're just relaxing. You just, especially the speed ones, you start seeing it come together. And so this one woman did one that was like a woman, you know, a female figure, because I was trying to look at like how people do skin textures, you know, with clay. And it was like an 8-month sculpt boiled down to 8 minutes. And I was like, 8 months? What did I get myself into with this dragon? But guys, good news. I mean, it's already pretty much coming together without too much. Oh, that's the spot I saw. You see, guys, it's undone. It's because I have to get down here to see it. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be easier to kind of hang this guy, hang the PVC from my hangman's noose now, rather than the dragon itself, since it's anchored. That way we can see all the undersides, but then it'll be kind of tough for you guys to see what's going on. So his tail kind of has some fat areas, but we'll address that when we, you know, start putting spikes on it and doing more of the final kind of shaping, you know, the final shaping. So I noticed that it does kind of stain your hands. Like if you see on my thumb, there's a little bit of a black haze going on. So they did say like this clay does that. Now I don't know if when I wash my hands, it'll just come off. That might be the case. It might just be clay residual and not dyeing or staining at all. But the package does warn that it will stain work surfaces. I don't really care about, you know, this workbench. It's easy enough to just swap out the top and screw in another one. But guys, we are kind of getting there. Oh, there's a little spot right around there. Let me see if I can get them before I forget. And right there. Trying to get away. He's trying to add some glitz. Like I have some foil poking through for some glitz. Maybe it's to repel spells. It's like a spell repeller. It bounces off the tin foil of the dragon. All right, so I'll give you guys a loop-de-loop, you know. So this part of the tail, of course, is a little too fat and the tail gets too skinny. But this part of the tail is going to get a lot fatter. So I'm not too worried about that fatness, you know, for now. It's going to get, you know, a bit fatter. And so here we have the body. There's a couple spots here I missed with the knee, and if I turn it, you'll see, you know, like right around there and kind of in there. So let's grab those. And Dave Beck was saying, wasn't the dragon under the stairs named Spot? Oh, I don't remember. I'm gonna have to like Google that one. I don't remember. And I assume you are meaning it was the Munsters that had the dragon under the stairs, not Addams Family, right? But either case, they have all those episodes up, like either on a Netflix or something. And I just love binge watching those. They're a lot of fun at night. Like the stories are simple, but timeless because they're still relatable. And so it's still a fun program to watch. And the episodes are short. They're like half an hour, boom, done, you know? So I'm just making his knee area a little bit thinner because it got a little bit fat. So that's looking pretty good. It looks like we have a little bit of blue right there. So I'm just taking like tiny little bits of clay. And Dave is saying, yeah, he can't remember which one either. But yeah, it was definitely one of them. So, all right, so I think we got it all. And I say we start with this wing. Yeah, let's start covering it. I'm not quite sure how it'll be against this mesh or how much weight that clay is going to add to the wings, but we'll see if we can keep it kind of, kind of light and not add, a huge bulky mess. And for this, I may have to stand. And I'm kind of doing these parts of the legs last until I figure out exactly how I want to deal with the legs and all of that. But let's see if I can do this. Oh, Dave had to sing the whole theme song, and he figured out it was the Addams Family. All right, so somehow this wing here if we look at this picture, I'm gonna see if I can bring it up to you guys. The wing flap, the wing skin connects to the torso, kind of in the middle of the body. So we're gonna try and do the same thing with our wing. And we see that the wing flap gets skinny, kind of where his arm is, and then goes out and gets fat. But it kind of connects to the middle of the torso. So, and I'm pretty much, there's tons of dragon references you can use, but because we started with this one, I'm kind of sticking with him. And one of the things I forgot is I thought it would be very cool to add some holes in the wings like, you know, that dragon has. So that's pretty easy to do. I'm literally just gonna go like that and add a couple holes in the most prominent areas. Now this cuts amazingly easily and it's not really sharp. I haven't really had it try to draw blood or anything like that. What draws blood is the armature, and it's a very soft metal, and for whatever reason, it likes to vampire out on you. I think I'll put another one here. That's one thing I forgot to do. It's about to start claying, and then like, oh no, we gotta remove the clay. And here, I'm going to just kind of make this a bit more of an oval. Got a little too sharp. And again, if you cut this too short and you're like, oh no, I would like to extend this and do clay, you could totally do that. This is just more for structure. So it's not like the clay now is forced to stop here. You can build the clay out more. And we got a hole here, a hole here. Maybe I'll add kind of a hole here at the top. And this kind of rips in a very good way. It kind of makes these natural, gnarly type of holes. And one more up here. We've seen some action. I think the hardest part, well, we haven't done the wing yet, so I was about to say the hardest part is done. Oh, let's not start talking just yet. So I have a hole here, 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 and here. That's like 4 holes. I think that's good. And Dave is saying, yes, the battle dragon has to have holes. Yeah, I'm gonna put a small hole here. They're all kind of the same size. So we got some good looking holes on this thing. And I did put some folds in the wings so it looks good. And already his wing, if you can see, is already folded right up against his neck. So we're going to have to unfold that. So it is like, don't think my hangman's noose idea would have worked, because I think that it's still too flimsy. So I'm just cheating and taking a look here and making sure it's kind of where we wanted it, which is kind of here. All right, and so I'm going to start forming that wing flap like that. See, I'm starting to form it to the, and no, I'm going to connect it to that. Oh, I'm running out of clay. Yep, I'm out of clay. Let me knead up some more. I'm going to try and connect it to the floating, wire mesh, and connect it to his body at about that point. That's about mid-body. And then I'll repeat the same thing on the other wing, but I figure if we get one wing done together, we can kind of figure out how we want to do this. And then next stream is all of the, the details, or as many details as we can get done. And then he bakes. And then we got to figure out the whole fire breathing situation. Oh, and he needs jaws too. Right now his face is like a lizard, face, or like a little salamander face. He has no like top and bottom jaw where the flames are going to come out of. He's more like looking cute right now. It's not very menacing. So let's see where my flap is, and I'm just going to move my chair over here. Whoop. So we both can see, mostly. All right, so I'm going to bend this wire to begin to meet it. So you can see I cut it, you know, by accident, a little bit short. I'm going to see if I can push it through the mesh, maybe, a little bit, and connect it to our wing flap. And all is silent. Everyone is like, will she connect it to the wing flap? Oh, here's some more. I was looking at this the other day and I was like, okay, so this is our first clay sculpt, right? Probably would have been better off just putting a dragon on the floor, you know, of the castle, on the ground, and have its head tilt up, shooting fire at our wizard. That way we can anchor all 4 feet on our model. He's not doing this crawling around thing that we're trying to get him to do, you know, crawling up the thing. But you know, I be Rachel. We don't do it. We never make it easy on ourselves, that's for sure. And I know my hand is like seriously all up in your guys' way. But that's kind of how it's coming out right now, which is a whole bunch of blobbiness. But where's the edge? There it is. Beginning to shape it a little bit better. See if I can bring them closer to you. So that's kind of what's going on, and you can see some of the layers of the clay that we need to smooth out, like right here. And I'll just like do this and watch the camera that you guys are watching. So that's beginning to look better, and it's a little scraggly over here, which might be a good thing. You know, he is a battle dragon, and so there, I think we have a successful or somewhat successful skin flap that once we start adding musculature and stuff like that, it'll look more like a solid piece than what we got going on here. And then, oh, wrong wing. Let's see if we can start putting some clay on this wing, and I'm going to try and go as thin as possible to not weigh this thing down. Well, I'm losing some foil. Let's tuck that back in there. It's like the pedunkadunk. This dragon is just trying to be super fashionable. It's like, I'm going to be a size 6. It's like most women are natural size 14. So it's okay if you are a woman dragon. Don't have to go so crazy. Love them biscuits, everybody. Love them biscuits. They're the best. And burgers. I do love salads as well. But sometimes it's okay to be in moderation. So, and you're a dragon. You're supposed to be feasting upon the villagers all the week, especially the little old people that can't get away, the children. Supposed to be feasting upon all of them. So all right, so his wing skin flap thing is coming more together. It's all kind of gnarly only because it's not smoothed out. And so now we're beginning to add onto the wing, and I'm trying to just watch out for the holes. You know, no point in covering over the holes. And lady dragons love the battle dragon scars. Yes, they always say, like, you know, fathers or mothers tell their little girls, oh, your knight in shining armor will come. And I was always like, you don't want the dude in the shining armor, because, as they say, this is a knight whose armor has never been tested. Here's some dude, trust me, ain't never seen battle. That's why his armor looks all like pretty. You want somebody, guy, girl, whatever, you know, because chicks can rock that armor too, whose armor is way beat up. The more beat up, the better. You know, this is someone that, you know, most likely will be in your corner. So skip the knights and knightesses, chick knights. I don't know if there's a name for them. The knightess, you know, skip them find the ones, you know, with the beat up armor, because they've seen it, they know how to handle it, you know, and you each will have an idea of how to handle things. And when you combine it together, then it's handled, right? So that's what they always say. I just balked it. I was like, nope. It's a better way to look at it. Or at least my way. I don't think there's a better or worse, but that's what works for me. All right, so the mesh is actually really helping out, and I'm going to stand for this, or at least sit on my legs. So I am kind of over here. And Dave Beck is saying nitettes. Yes, the nitettes. Oh, I almost covered a hole. Now, come to think of it, as I'm doing this, I talked a big game, you know, in the beginning, where I was like, you know, if you want to do this without an armature, that's totally fine. You don't have to use an armature. You know, unless another more experienced clay modeler is watching, I don't know how I would have done these wings, because if you just clay them up, this thing would be so heavy. I mean, the armature kind of like helps hold it up, you know, like this. The whole wing would have been like a droop, and the dragon would look like he's fallen asleep. And to the wizard, that's a little, you know, the wizard's like, ha, I got this dragon now. All right, part of my armature was like bailing on us. All right, let me get that. I'm getting this like as paper thin as I possibly can. So it like really just flaps around, super paper thin. And I kind of like some of these arches that I put, because you know how the skin bunches up? So I may do some raised spines along these arches just to kind of accentuate them a little bit. And let's see. And with the force that you do have to kind of push with the clay, yeah, the wing wants to kind of hit the guy in the head. So we'll have to reposition the wing once I'm done, because I reposition the wing, but it just keeps unpositioning itself just with the force. Use the force. And it's just kind of futile to keep putting the wing back where it needs to be. So once we get this all stuck on the wing, then we can do more of a final shaping. And here's our hole. So maybe I'll just keep my finger there as a reminder to myself. And I'm wondering if clay needs a minimum thickness. You know how certain things, like you're building up concrete or anything like that, making a concrete ramp, there is a minimum thickness that you have to have. So that I don't know. I have to imagine there probably isn't, because people can make such like delicate works of art with clay. So I imagine it's pretty good. And I'm wondering how much of the clay is seeping through to the other side. And so a lot of it, we're only going to need a very thin layer on the other side of this wing to be able to do it. So once we get this base on, then we have a good base to start putting our shapes. And maybe I'll get more aggressive and do some larger, oops, he's getting heavy now. Did you guys see that? He definitely wants to lean. I may have to bolt the PVC pipe down for our next stream, just to kind of keep it from toppling over and smushing all of our amazing detail that we end up doing. But yeah, this is looking pretty good. And yeah, my hands are progressively getting a little bit dark, And we'll see. I'll report back when I wash them after the stream. And so it's almost looking like a rock texture because of the way I'm piecemealing putting this on. I'm not putting on like a huge sheet or anything. It's already making the wings like look like they're made of rock. And we'll add some skin texture to that once we smooth out all the rocks next week. Or the rocky look. But yeah, he keeps banging himself in the poor head right here. So he's getting a divot. And now that I know this with the wings, and you can see that the wing here, if I move them, is already touching the floor with the weight. So we'll finish getting the clay on the wing, and I think we'll concentrate on the wing, get the wing really where we want it, position it, and then focus on the rest of the dragon, because we'll get the dragon all gorgeous with its gorgeous spikes and stuff here, and then we'll work on the wing, and it'll make exactly that noise, as it totally botches up our beautiful clay job. So I may end up doing that, actually. See, you go learning. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, his wing is definitely sunken down a little bit. And what I might do is take one of these claws here and just maybe with a piece of armature wire. See, it's sunk. So take a piece of armature wire, bring it to where it needs to be, and then just make a hole in the PVC and attach it there. So that, will definitely help the whole sinking problem. And I'd rather not bake it twice, because the other idea I had was finish the wing, bake it, finish, other parts of the dragon, bake it. But I think the less that we sit there baking the LEDs, the better. And Frozen Mustache is saying that I'm going to have sore hands. Indeed, with all this kneading, you would think I'd have like Popeye hands with giant bicep-like muscles coming out of my fingers. That might happen. I might wake up going like, oh my gosh. Finger exercises, how they have those balls and stuff like that. That's kind of what this is. It's like, if you want one of those nervous, squeeze things, stress relief balls, just get yourself some clay, stress relieve a whole bunch, and then make a model, a cool looking model. All right, again, I'm going like paper thin on this, and I have this like roller thing, so I'm wondering if I roll it, I can make it like really thin. Here, I'm rolling it down here. It's a little blurry. But I'm going to try and roll this thing. Oh, now it's kind of wanting to stick to the foil a little bit. So yes, got a couple ideas going with these wings. If you guys think of ideas, because your ideas are usually better than my ideas, but if you guys think of any ideas on how to handle these wings, but I think I am going to have to tie it up because it's getting a little droopy, and the idea was to have them going around the castle, landing, and having this wing kind of just whoosh, like that. We're going to have to like put in some sound effects, into this thing. So yeah, this one's probably the paper's thin that I have done thus far. And so here's our hole, and I'm going to just keep the hole, and it's okay that it's a little Barbie. I'll keep the barbs. And Dave Beck is saying, your fingers will be so tough, you'll be able to punch a hole through the dragon. Heck yeah. I don't even need to snip holes for the wings. I'll just be like, psh, and make holes that way. I'll be ready to fight a dragon with my bare fists. And getting them shapes of the wings. And I definitely want to do some very cool horns on the little fingers. Now, some of these are a little bit long, these fingers, but I kind of on purpose left them that way until we decide for sure. We practice making some horns on them. And so what I'll do for next time is we'll wrap up this wing. I'm going to repeat on the other wing, and we have the basic, stuff laid down for this dragon. And then for next stream, we'll start adding all of the details. And in order to kind of speed things along, I'll probably start one side of the dragon on my own, and then we can finish the other half of the dragon. Or maybe I can do the wing and get that done so it's not like constantly banging, because you can see all the scratch marks going on his head right now just from this wing banging on it. So I don't know, part of me is considering whether or not we should position the wing and bake it so that way it's hardened into place, and then do the rest of the body and bake that again. But I'm not super fond of doing that with LEDs. A double or even triple bake on them. And the rock texture looks kind of neat, and you can see some of the mesh pattern kind of poking through. So we'll definitely smooth all that out. And for the rest of this month, I have kind of a weird travel schedule. So what I'm thinking of doing is that normally next week I wouldn't be able to do our Thursday. So instead, I'm thinking we'll steal the Monday from all the other people and we'll use it for ourselves. And so we can do all of this sculpting on Monday. And I know this is a part that a lot of you guys expressed interest in seeing, is the sculpting part. I mean, it can go real well or really bad. So I wanted to tell you guys with enough, forethought, or earliness. So you kind of prepare, you're already used to watching the Monday streams, but we're going to go back to finishing this up. That way, maybe I can bake it before I leave, right? Oh, he's wanting to tip now. He's wanting to tip over because it's getting a little bit heavy. So I'm trying to leave the clay as light as possible. Maybe put some wood under the wing. Yeah, that's a great idea. I have some wood here. Just kind of keep it. There we go. Kind of keep it as steady, at least for this procedure, as much as possible. So that was Dave's idea of putting some wood under here. And you can see like how well I have his foot anchored in there. Now, obviously, if we do our not stove idea, but our grill idea for this, because the feet all have like little loops on them, I'm just going to go ahead and screw that foot right into the PVC pipe. So that way we're not messing around. Because that glue is going to be the first thing that's going to melt off. All right, so if you make it like really thin, it does have a little bit of trouble sticking. So I am noticing that. So if you make it a little thicker, then you can take your finger and drag it. And that's a little bit easier for the wings and getting them kind of thinner. It'd be neat if they had some kind of like translucent clay, or I guess you could do some kind of resin thing where if you look at a bat when it flies, you can actually see the membrane and you can see the translucency, in the wings. And I would imagine that dragons are the same way. It's a very thin skin, and when you make it out of clay, it's, pretty much opaque. But, I guess there's no real easy way to do that. Unless maybe resin. To think of how to mold that one. And then you can color the resin. Like skin color. And then paint over it. And then you got something that looks pretty skin-like. All right, I'm going to go back here. Kind of neglected the bottom here. And we are getting this thing covered. I foresee a little bit of kneading in my future. So no wonder the girl doing the statuette, she was like, oh yes, this took me 8 months and 8 minutes. Now you guys all get to watch it. I'm like, 8 months? Yeah, it's time consuming to do it. So I try and plan out for projects, what's kind of the neatest thing to see about this project, But sometimes you just can't get around it. gotta clay this all up before we can add details. So sometimes gotta get through some of the boring part. But what's nice about this is that just by covering him with a basic layer of clay, I'm getting a much better idea of what you can get away with. How thin can you have the clay? Like how little and thin can we have these horns be? Or do we have to stick with really like, you know, fatter horns? What level of detail, how easy it is to mold and shape the way you want. And also, I didn't know if the clay was gonna leave my fingerprints all over it. I'm like, I have to smooth out the whole thing. Or, you know, if it was gonna be easy to apply, or was it gonna be really hard and just really hard to shape? So this is answering a lot of those questions. And this clay is pretty easy. Once you get it kneaded, it kind of warms up a little bit. And you can even just almost smear it on in certain cases as long as it's thick enough. So I learned that as well. So I can just smear it on. And then I'll go back and make sure that this is, you know, as thin as we can possibly make it. So I did a bit of over smearing there. You can see some of the netting coming through. So let's re-smear. And then I'll use that tool, this guy over here, to really, oh, nope, not that guy. This guy over here, which is made of rubber, to really start smoothing out all these edges. And you start losing that, but he needs a little bit more where you can see still some of our netting. We definitely, you know, want to try and hide the netting. Because the wizard will be like, wait a minute, are you made of chicken wire and duct tape? And all of us are like, yeah, you know. And the wizard's like, oh. It's like, that's how we fix a lot of our things, is duct tape, zip ties, and chicken wire, right? Sometimes it's the easiest way for a quick fix. But we cannot let the wizard know that that's exactly what's going on here, because he'll be like, yeah. Although some of those repairs last a long time, so I don't know. If I heard that, I would kind of think about it. So he's got some of his holes going on, like right there and right there. That's looking pretty good. And we have some larger holes going on here, which now that I see kind of what the clay does, I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. I thought I was going to be able to rip it right off. And it's like, nope, not yet. My fists aren't that strong yet. I need to knead more clay in order to get strong enough to just rip mesh right out like that. So if you are on Discord in the Wrench Army member section, I already put up the PDF. It's like a 2-page PDF of each of the dragons that I've shown you, blown to scale the way I have. So if you ever want to replicate, you know, you don't necessarily have to make the dragon on the tower, but if you want to replicate any one of those dragons, you can get an idea that that's about the size of the dragon that you're going to end up with, which is decent. It's not like unmanageably big, but it's also not like minuscule small either. So if you're going for like a miniature dragon, you know, you might have to print something else out. So those are already up for you guys to, you know, give it a whirl. And then whatever you build, definitely post up. I love looking at that stuff. Because sometimes you guys come up with some great ideas where I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. There we go. But yes, I saw a video where somebody did use just chicken wire for the wings. But what I noticed too is that the wings were much more difficult to shape that way with the chicken wire. And the clay would kind of like fall through sometimes. So I think this mesh is a little bit easier. And I'm sure you can find it at the hardware store too. You don't have to necessarily go to a craft store. And of course, there's ye old Amazon, you know, for all this stuff as well. But sometimes you're just like, you end up like, you know what, I got time on my hands today. You know, I want to go through this today. So it's easier to run out to the store and just grab it. All right. Now I'm losing some of the form of my wings that I put in only because I'm pushing the clay so hard, so part of it seeps through to the other side, and then I can smooth it out on the other side so we don't have to add a layer over here and then a layer behind, making the wing like really, really cumbersome. So I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, I'll have to reshape the wing and the different folds that I had in the wing. Oh yeah, it really wants to let me just do that. Yeah, it's even liking that. And where's my little cutter thing? Here it is. All right, so we're picking up a couple skills here. Clay is heavy, you know. Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk? Who would have thought, thunk, you know, whatever the correct terminology is. But yeah, we are kind of getting to the end of the wing, and you can see it's just like, oh, I'm so heavy. So yes, I think I am definitely going to tie it to our PVC pipe, since we decided we are going to go ahead and cook this PVC pipe in the grill. Multi-use grill. So I have the wood now under the PVC because it is getting that heavy where the PVC is just kind of wanting to go over, and it's not enough to put the wing, because the wing, I put the wood under the wing and it was fine before, but now the fingers are beginning to get crushed with the weight. And it's interesting because like I'm not putting a ton of clay on this thing. It's got like not very much. And I'm leaving some of these ribs showing to kind of remind me where they are. And I'm going to make some cool like bone spines, I guess the word would be. And we have kind of probably one of our larger holes going on right here. And get the bottom done here. All right, I'm figuring things out for how we're going to tackle some of the, you know, the details. Because yeah, this whole business of trying to do the wing, it's just going to keep hitting the poor guy in the head. His head is getting like mangled right about now. So yeah, we have to come up with a solution for that. And I think it's to do the wing first, just get it out of the way, and then do the rest of the dragon. Probably the best is to do the wing, cook it, and then do the rest of the dragon. So the wing is absolutely still. Or do the dragon, the details of the dragon. Oh, but then we would have to take the clay off the wings. Because if the wing bakes in the crooked position, that's how it's going to be. It's just going to be crooked. So that idea goes out the window. It's like, I thought I had a good idea, but no. And Roleplay Gamers is saying, hi, how are you doing there today? I'm doing awesome. We are making an attack dragon. And so if you haven't caught the beginning of this project, what we did is make a cool plasma ball by pumping high voltage electricity through a regular old light bulb. And we tuned the frequency with a 555 timer. And so we got these really cool plasma streams that look, you know, a lot like what you see with the plasma ball. Although I think we could do a little bit more tuning. So then I thought, you know, that was going to be the end of the project, right? But then I thought, man, this is so cool. We need a way to display it. So then I started pitching, like, how do you guys want to display this thing? Like a wizard wand and have the plasma ball on top of the wizard wand. Like I could try and carve something out of wood maybe, or foam. And you guys settled on some kind of lamp. So I'm like, okay, let's make a lamp and put it on top of the lamp, kind of like a candelabra. But then the more we got to talking, it was like, man, it'd be cool if there was like a dragon. This is becoming a fantasy build. So let's build a dragon that, for whatever reason, wants to get this plasma ball. And then, of course, I had to throw in, well, what if there's a wizard too? And this wizard is battling the dragon. And so the wizard is shooting out his blue light and the dragon is shooting out fire. And the two meet in the middle, causing a massive explosion. So that's kind of what we're building. And so we're starting with our clay model for the dragon. We already built the wizard tower that this plasma ball sits on. So we decided, you know, why have kind of a plain old lamp looking thing? Let's make it like an actual wizard tower. So, oh, and Roleplay Gamers is saying he loves dragons. Well, you stumbled upon the right stream then. So for this dragon, we're in the clay process. As you can see, we added red LED eyes. And so we were discussing, you know, whether or not this will survive the baking process. And clearly it will, because one of our awesome Wrench Army members already tested this using chicken fingers or chicken strips. He sacrificed chicken strips for this project. That's like a major sacrifice. In my book, it is. And so for today, we're just kind of, it's kind of like a get the clay on the dragon day. You know, we made this wire armature. We covered it in foil the last time. And just to kind of like catch up on the project. And now we're covering it in just a base layer of clay. Position the eyes where we wanted it. And on Monday next week, we're going to start adding the features. Like horns. We're going to be adding like horns and more horns. And cool, we have some cool tears going on the wings. We're going to be adding all of the skin textures, you know, and just playing around with some different ideas. You know, this is my first clay sculpture, so we'll see how it turns out. It'll either look, you know, decent, or it'll look, you know, like Play-Doh, you know, like a Play-Doh sculpture, and then we'll have to bag it and decide, you know, figure something out. Figure something else out. But I figure we give it a whirl. I like to learn new skills. This is something I've always wanted to try, you know, especially with a dragon. And maybe I didn't pick the easiest position, you know, to try, but we'll figure it out. I should have made, like I was saying, like a little horse type of dragon where he's just kind of walking on the floor, very static, very easy to do. But oh no, I'm like, I know, he can be crawling up the tower while landing when he's flying, and his wings gonna be outstretched. He's gonna be breathing fire too. Let's just throw it all in there. But that's how you learn. That way you can build one dragon, try out all the things that you've always wanted to try, and see what works, right? One of them, the odds are, one of them things will work. So now it's just covering the armature, and we almost got this wing done, guys. Awesome. And then we'll kind of review what else we have to do to get this done before the great bake, because it'll be baked in the oven. So Dave is asking, will the clay smooth out with a smooth tool, with a little water on the smooth tool? That I don't know. This clay is actually waterproof, so I am not quite sure if that'll work. So we can definitely try it on here. But also, it's really nasty rough right now, only because I'm just kind of piling, you know, clay like crazy and not even trying to smooth out the way it is. Once you start kind of, more so than the clay tool, once you start putting, it also needs another thin layer, because I can definitely see the, you know, the mesh netting, but you can see where I've already rubbed with my finger, just that little area is beginning to get smooth. And so you do the same thing here, and it starts to smooth out. And so this is a, you know, laborious process right here. And we're going to be adding even more clay to this thing just to kind of create some spikes and effect. So these wings are going to be a little bit thick. And then at that point, we can kind of start smoothing and then adding our texture. But I'll try on like a dummy piece of clay to see if that's a viable option. It probably is. It's probably easy. The easiest option. And fastest. All right, and another thing I want to do too is when we add detail, adding some tears along the bottom here, you know, like some pieces have already begun to tear off. I think that'll look pretty cool. So I think I got the top portion of this complete. And what we have left, so this will be more like this, you know, he's just heavy right now. And so I'm going to go ahead and tie him before I add more clay. I'm just going to get this situated because you can see how it's hanging and having a real tough time maintaining its posture. So it's a good thing that I did tie this wing down to our PVC pipe. So if you flip over, you can see he's got his wing skin flap, which is already kind of deformed because of the weight of this wing. The wing is normally like this. And look at the deflection, and it's only resting on the ground or on the tabletop. If this tabletop weren't here, this would probably swing a good ways. So that's already telling me that if we're gonna bake this thing, oops, I'm gonna have to tie this wing somehow. And that could be making a base for this. And rather than tying the wing to the PVC, tying it to, or just, you know, using a stiffer rod to go ahead and have it rest on a base, kind of like that, like the way we were going to do with the acrylic rod and the wizard. So I may put in a couple stints, you know, for it, some pilings, you know, like stilts for its wing. So before I move too much further with the wing, I think I want to do that because we're going to start to clay up the wing and it's just going to get heavier and heavier. And then on this side, we pretty much just have this wing. You know, he's grabbing onto the side of the castle with his little wing thumb, you know, and the rest of the wing is folded. So this is going to be kind of interesting to clay. But we saw how like this one process goes. And now I think I will stabilize this so that way it doesn't start to deform too much. But we have clay on the rest of him, and this is just like a base clay coverage, and we can start bulking out the areas, adding muscles and details during our next stream here. And Dave is saying, wing cribbing? Yes, that's pretty much what we're doing. And Roleplay Gamers is saying that I have a few dragon statues here. Awesome. Well, hopefully this one will be one of my statues that I can look at and be like, ooh, that's really cute. Although the store-bought statues are probably way more detailed, you know, than what we'll get for a first-time clay sculpt. But I don't know, I think we'll do pretty well. And I see that a lot of the clay has seeped through the mesh. So we're not going to have to add too much more clay on this other side. Most of the decor will be on this side and this side in the areas that you can see. So what I'm going to do before Monday is finish bulking out all this clay here on his chest area. And I'm going to try and move him delicately over here. So you can see like where his LED eyes are coming in, and you can see some of it's really not too bad. Maybe that hand's a little bit worse. But here's his neck, and you can see his chest right here is still a little small. We need that chest to come out. So I'm just going to bulk up some clay there. But before I do that, I definitely want to settle this wing situation so I can move this almost like a lazy Susan without having any issue. So I might indeed actually kind of cut out some kind of circular thing where I can, get the wing solid so that way it's not having issues. And Roleplay Gamers is saying, looks good so far. Yeah. It's looking better than honestly what I thought it was going to look like for my first try. So I got some clay to do, but first I'm going to stabilize this wing, like I said. So guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I always love it's like Thursday night and tomorrow is like Friday, but Thursdays are like, yeah, my Rent Army days. So exciting. So, and I was very excited to try this. So you guys, Monday will be our day next week because of my travel schedule, and I definitely don't want to miss my time with you guys. And so we're going to meet back here Monday at 7 p.m. And Dave is already saying, see ya Monday. In the meantime, do get on Discord. There's links for it on Twitch, on YouTube, on the website. So if you hop on Discord, post up your dragon pictures, any horns you want to see, gnarly teeth that you want to see, or ideas for baking this or structuralizing it a little bit better, providing it support. I definitely want to hear that. So I'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.